What's up, world? Here we are, episode 22 of Parenting Autism. What's up, Sandy? Come on, give it to me.
Oh, my. And this would be because I say, let's open up with a little zip.
There's your zip.
Well, you zipped it. Hey! And yes, a warm welcome to anybody tuning in and listening to our Parenting Autism podcast. We are happy to be here, and I thought that today we would answer some questions that we have received.
Okay, let's do it.
And Chris does not know these in advance because we like to keep it fresh and we like to keep it real and raw. So question number 1. Does Bryce know that he has autism or that he processes information differently?
No. I don't think he realizes that.
I don't think he does either.
He's 5. And
he's almost 6.
Not on that level of a regular 5-year-old. I think a regular 5-year-old might understand that something's different about Bryce, but Bryce doesn't know that Bryce is different.
I 100% agree with that answer. And we've never had a discussion with him to even attempt to explain what autism is because he just doesn't have that comprehension yet. Right. And so in time, I hope we do get to cross that bridge because I hope that he develops enough that he can understand that. But if not, and he remains in oblivious bliss, which is where he is now, then we'll accept that too. So, yeah, I 100% agree with that. He does not understand, and he has no clue that that he does things that are different than the other kids. But you're right. Other kids are beginning to recognize that about Bryce, which I'm sure is going to increase with each passing week, month, and year.
Roger.
Yeah. So the next question, was Bryce tested for autism?
Was he tested for autism? He was observed, and he met the criteria.
Yeah. And you know, I've had this question come up more than once about testing, and it's not like it is something that can be tested with blood work or a stool sample or a urine sample or something that can be diagnosed because of definitive test results. It's like what you said. He has been observed, and he has been observed multiple times, multiple occasions. For anyone that's new to the podcast and doesn't have any backstory on Bryce, it began when he was 2.5, and he was observed in early steps is what they call it here in Florida. And they observed his behaviors. We were in a room with 3 people, and there was one that was working with him, one that was putting all the notes into the computer, and one that was asking us a bunch of questions about Bryce and his behaviors and his language and his eye contact and all kinds of sorts of questions, and it was kind of like the checklist. And I think the pediatricians are supposed to do that as well. It's just in our situation, the pediatrician that we had at that time, she had like a tablet. I remember when he was 2 going over a bunch of questions, but it was just kind of like, I have 10 minutes to meet with you. I need to get through all these questions. Would you answer yes or no? And there was no elaboration. And even though I even had expressed concerns at that time that I didn't feel like I felt like his language was slowing down because he actually had a bunch of words, but he wasn't stringing them together. They would just be all single words. So, so he was observed when he was 2.5. And we took him to a neurologist who we were already established with because of his history of having seizures and a brain hemorrhage. And so we kind of got the quick diagnosis, which I know from hearing other stories that it can take months, if not years, to actually get a diagnosis from a neurologist or a psychologist. But he was observed by 2 different psychologists, one through the school board and then one independently for, what was the disability we're working on? They had to go for that for the state of Florida.
Yeah, that was the agency for
people with disabilities or something like that. Yeah, sorry to throw you off there, but
yeah, persons with disabilities.
That's it. Yes. So he had to be observed, and he doesn't test well. But again, it was confirmed by both individuals that spent time with him and asked him questions and observed him that he has autism or is autistic, whichever way you want to say that. And he also was observed when he had turned 3, because once you're out of the early steps here in the state of Florida, they will put you into the public school system in what they call an ESE program. And he had to be observed and tested for that to officially qualify, meet that criteria, and then be able to get the assistance that he needed there. Other testing, not necessarily to test him for autism, but I know, Chris, you did a lot of research on having blood work done, and I think he has other urine tests and stuff to kind of see if there was anything biologically that we maybe could help him with, like supplements and things like that. You want to elaborate on any of that testing?
Well, I want to back up a little bit.
Sure.
Because I hear it often that I think my child may have autism, but my pediatrician doesn't think so, or my pediatrician doesn't think they have it, or, that type of thing where there's an issue with the pediatrician because either they don't know the criteria or they don't know the traits. So same thing. So what people really need to do to get a definitive answer is to see a neurologist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Those are the 3 that are going to give you that diagnosis or observe your child and tell you what's going on. If you think something is not normal with your child, it's probably not normal. And some people go into denial about it, but the earlier you catch it, the better. So if you think something is wrong with your child, absolutely first run it by your pediatrician and see what they think. But if they don't give you the answer that you want, or the response that you think should be warranted for what's going on, then by all means go the next step and see somebody that specializes in those types of disorders. And then as far as the supplements go, once we received the autism diagnosis, that's when I went down the biomedical road to find deficiencies that Bryce had in vitamin D and L-carnitine specifically. And I'm sure you guys will do your own research out there, but you'll know that certain kids, they have deficiencies. Every kid is different. So
you did some blood work, correct?
Yeah, we did blood work.
And some was assigned by his pediatrician, the new pediatrician, and some was assigned or prescribed by the neurologist because the pediatrician couldn't do them all.
Well, in the beginning, I brought a list to our pediatrician, who was very flexible with us and knew that we were trying to do what's best for Bryce. And she said a lot of parents that come in, I don't know how to say it, but they weren't proactive is the word that I'm looking for. They were, I don't know, they felt helpless and they weren't doing anything to help their child, and
maybe they didn't know what to do.
Maybe they didn't know what to do. So I gave her a list of blood work that I wanted to do on him, and that's when we found the vitamin D deficiency. And then we went to a geneticist to that's when they tested for the L-carnitine.
Right. I think you actually had the deficiency documented, but she had to prescribe how much to give him.
Yes. So that's where we're at. So long story short, yes, if you get the autism diagnosis, it is in your best interest, in my opinion, to have blood work done, do your research. I mean, gosh, it's easy to give a supplement if your kiddo is low on something, and it may help them tremendously.
Okay. So I was just trying to give that answer about testing, because it's kind of a broad spectrum. So, in a nutshell, no, there isn't a simple test that you can do and say, okay, that's positive and your child has autism, because it's not a disease. It's not a...
No, the blood testing for deficiencies came after the diagnosis.
Yeah. I'm just saying, but the answer to that question is no, there's not like a simple test.
No.
But the testing we were doing was to see if there were ways that maybe we could help him, that would help his brain, because it's a neurological disorder, and gut as well, because I know we did a prior episode about diet, and I'm sure we'll probably do an updated one since we've changed his diet quite a bit. But anyway, so I think we kind of answered that question. And let's see, what are some of the, if I can read their writing, what are some of the ways you reduce your stress from parenting autism? I'll let you go first. I know the first thing that came to my mind, but I'll let you go first.
Reduce my stress.
Related to parenting.
Yes. I would say to have me time. A massage is great, or just alone time, me by myself without him, or us together without him. Where he's got a babysitter. And I just recently joined a gym, so that will probably help me release
I think that will help
some of that.
Yes.
And it is stressful, let's face it. It's more stressful than having a typical 5-year-old, I will say that for sure.
Yes.
What's your answer?
Well, my first thought was, how I like to de-stress, and that is when I tell you, I need to go take my hot bath, and yes. I'll see you guys in a little while.
Yes.
That's my distressor, and I have my salts, and I have my lavender scent, and I immerse my head down into the water so my ears are beneath it. So if he is yelling at the top of his lungs playing his game, it's very muffled. And that's how I escape a couple of times a week when I'm really feeling it. That would be my number one. And then I definitely I don't get a whole lot of quote unquote me time. But I have been getting up earlier in the morning, especially during the summer while he's on break. And walking in the morning has been really good for me. And I will usually listen to something. And sometimes I listen to an uplifting Christian podcast. So I listen to different things, but that's a good way to kind of de-stress, because I'm getting exercise and kind of getting my day going on a positive note that way. So that's one way I de-stress. You had mentioned us getting out together, which up until recently, it has been rare that we've been able to do that. But as we were talking at our dinner date last night that we actually got to have, thank you, Lynn, if you're listening, we got to go out to dinner last night while a dear friend came over and played with Bryce. And it was so nice because we can talk, and he's not climbing over one of us, and we love that he wants to snuggle with us, but it's kind of hard to eat your meal, and to concentrate, when he's right there with us. So just having an hour or two alone together definitely helps us de-stress, because we're able to talk as well and stay connected. So,
well, for instance, we ate a pizza out tonight, and he had his iPad, which helps us get through a meal. Let's face it. True. iPad helps us get through a meal.
Because he has to be doing, it's part of that ADHD.
Yes,
he's busy and he needs to be doing something.
So, during the meal, he's having these outbursts because he's watching a roller coaster or whatever.
And he wants to
on
scream
YouTube.
with the person going down the hill.
Yes, he wants to scream with everybody on the roller coaster.
Right.
Next thing you know, he's pounding on the bench seat in the restaurant, and I'm like, there's people behind him, and or there's all kinds of things that go on. So our dinner is mostly handling him, and we get to chat a little bit.
Very little, but a little.
It's not peaceful, and it's not relaxing.
No.
So,
and when you take the iPad, because at a certain point, it's like, okay, we have to take it so he can eat. But then that's when he literally climbs on me, and he loves to put his hands all over my face. And I don't know what's up with that, but, it's not the most comforting, and his nails need to be clipped, by the way, again, which I always know when his hands are digging into my face, and he just needs to be doing something constantly.
And it's extra special when he has pizza sauce on his hands.
Lovely. So, we just try to work through those things, but to have an actual dining experience that is Bryce-free means you have a dining experience that is normally stress-free. And those are the few ways that we've been able to de-stress. I think actually doing this podcast and unloading a lot and talking it out together has reduced some stress. And from a spiritual aspect, if I can always find that my stress level goes down tremendously if I'm praying as I should, and if I'm reading the Bible and receiving encouraging words to keep my optimism and my hope and my joy at its highest level. Those are the other ways that I can reduce my stress while parenting autism. Is that good? All right, awesome. The next question is, oh boy, do you worry about who will take care of Bryce after you're gone?
Yes, and I would say that I worry more as he's getting older because he's not catching up like I hoped he would. Mm-hmm. So it's becoming more obvious that he has deficits, and gosh, he's only 5, almost 6, but 18 is going to be around the corner. Everybody says they grow up so fast, and they do. And I don't know if he'll be able to live on his own. I don't know if he's going to be able to hold down a job. There's a lot of unknowns, and with unknowns come anxiety about that. It's hard to see the future. You just got to trust God. That's a big deal. He has a plan for Bryce, and when we're not around anymore, we just pray that he's able to live life, a happy life.
Yeah, I think there's a few layers to this question and the answers that go to it. I think first, it probably weighs a little heavier on our minds because we are older parents. So, the fact that we both just celebrated our 50th birthdays, and Bryce is 5 and we'll be celebrating his 6th birthday. I mean, nature is nature. There's just the reality that we will most likely be gone before Bryce is gone. And actually that would be my prayer for many reasons, because I couldn't imagine losing him. But having said that, if it's the natural way that life goes, that may happen, sooner versus later, as opposed to if we were in our early 20s. May not weigh on our mind as much, is really what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. But it's like you said, we do the things.
We're old.
We are old. Hey, we have an ARP, and we got 10% off of our dinner last night, so we find the perks. Oh my. Anyway, so you have to laugh about these things because this is a pretty heavy question, but we have done the things we can do. So we went ahead and we got a will, and we put into place things for Bryce and who would be taking care of him, and plan A, plan B, plan C, and lined up all those things. So that was one thing that was within our control that we could do. And so we've done that. So that gave us some peace of mind that is done. And we are working very diligently on how can we help Bryce live independently. And I think those are a lot of the things that, again, within our control. Academics is important. I mean, obviously, we're starting him in kindergarten in a few days, and we're trying to streamline him in, with the regular classroom environment. We'll see how that all turns out. But really where a lot of our focus and time and energy has been going into teaching him life skills and independence. So the fact that he's potty trained and that he can independently, take care of that for himself. And I think he's almost done even with wiping himself too, right? I know you've been working with him on that, but that was a goal this year. And we're working on that. That's getting much, much better. And even if we go to a restaurant, we let him independently go to the bathroom if it's not in a large, public, crowded place, but where we're there, we know nobody's in there. He could go in, he can take care of his business, and he can come out with his pants pulled up, which is great because we had to work on that. But yeah, those are things of independence. Each time that he can dress himself and undress himself, completely, we're working on that. That's again, preparing him for independence. Brushing his teeth without being prompted so that he has healthy hygiene. And, he's asking for baths, and get him into that routine so he knows that that's important. Teaching him independence, and if we can get those kind of life skills for the basics now that, again, a lot of parents take for granted if they don't have a child that's delayed like Bryce, and as he gets older, that's what we'll continue to do. Just try to help him develop skills and things that's going to give him the best opportunity to be able to do things independently. Even if he doesn't live independently, the more he's able to do things for himself, the higher his self-esteem will be. And I think the higher his self-esteem will be, the more joyful he will be as he gets older. So that's kind of the game plan and where we're at. And if my mind goes too far into the future and I start to actually feel worry or panic about what it's going to be like 5 years from now or 10 years from now, I scale it back. I have to be disciplined and say, don't go there yet, because who knows really what's going to happen in the next 5 years. And we're living it day by day, and we'll see what happens. So the last question that we'll wrap up here is Bryce fully vaccinated?
Oh, that's a good one. No.
That's the short of it.
No, that's the short answer.
What's the long of it?
The long answer is
he's partially vaccinated.
He got all of his vaccinations up until we saw him change, which was around 2 years old.
Yeah.
And
I think 18 months was the last required one, because I think it goes from 18 months to 3 years. It's
a controversial subject, and I think each parent and set of parents has to deal with that on their own. But for me, it's he's not going to get any more vaccines under my watch. And I've done my research. Do I have proof that it contributed to his autism or caused it? No. But have I learned enough about vaccines to know that they can harm a person? Yep. Do I want to risk that with somebody that's already fragile? Nope. And that's where I'm at.
And I completely respect that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do. And so that's kind of the decision that we have made for now. And does that cause problems for us? Well, potentially, yes. We actually had to switch pediatricians last year because once Bryce turned 5, the insurance that became available to us through the state of Florida, they did not have his current pediatrician, who we loved, on the plan. So we had to find another pediatrician office. And we found one, which they're great, and they have definitely taken care of the couple times that we've needed to take him. But they told us straight up front, we require that all of our patients be fully vaccinated. And I think they gave us a year to get it done.
And I get it.
I know, because they don't want the risk of him possibly bringing something in that another child could contract, and they don't want the liability or the lawsuit. And I get
from
it.
the groups that I'm in, it's a common issue for most parents who have a child on the spectrum. It is difficult finding a pediatrician that will work with you as far as vaccines go, if your child's not up to date. So it's just the world that we live in. Autism is becoming more prevalent.
Well, hopefully there will be a pediatrician or two that will be understanding to that. And even if they just take those children, honestly, their offices would stay full.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we actually did lose services with the
allergist.
The allergist.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said he couldn't come back because he wasn't vaccinated. So we have hit some stumbles on it from a school aspect. It has not been an issue because we have the religious choice waiver or something that you get?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And we religiously don't believe that you should be vaccinated. Yeah. So, at least that has not caused a problem with education. I'm not saying that it won't in the future. That's always subject to change. And I know that's why a lot of parents with children who are on the spectrum, it's another reason I should say that they homeschool, is because they don't have to deal with that. But, it's you roll with the punches and you go with your heart and your beliefs, and to each their own. All we're doing is just sharing our walk, our lives, our opinions, and what we deem to be best for our family and for Bryce. So that's where we're at on that.
That be it, right on the nose.
That be it on the nose. So so those were the 5 questions that I pulled. That, again, I see these come across. And
if anybody else has questions out there for us, to drop us a line.
Please do.
We'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, we've got the links. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're everywhere. Yeah. We have a website.
Shout out to those people in Australia and the UK and Canada. We got a lot of fans around there, and just want to say hi to them. And of course, we have a bunch in the United States because that's where we're out of. But
and we are seeing, we can see some stats, and there's more people finding us, more people joining and following us on Instagram and on our Facebook page, and reaching out. And that's part of what we're here for, is sharing our journey. And while we're certainly not experts in the field of autism, we're experts in the field of parenting Bryce.
Yeah.
We've got a few years of experience. We have definitely done a lot of research, a lot of studies, attended conferences. That's what we do, and that's how we're wired. We're the type of people that we just take what we're given and dive in and do all that we can to help Bryce, and also to help others and pay it forward, because we've had a lot of people who have helped us, and we still look to those who have children that are older than Bryce. And, what did you do when you reach this age?
We're
and when you reach that
age,
and so we have people ahead of us. And now that we've got, 3 years behind us, we have people that are behind us. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of getting there in the middle.
We're not experts, but we can all learn from each other.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the beauty of having the podcast and connecting with other families that also can relate to us because they also parent a child on the spectrum. It helps us know that we're not alone, and we're here to help others know that they are not alone either, and that we're all here to help each other and to lift each other up and to find ways to just help our children, and not to fix them, not to change them, to help them live their best lives possible. That's what it's about for me.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, on that note, we'll just wrap up
We
here.
always wrap up on that note.
I know.
On that one note.
On what else should I say? Well, having said all of that.
That's all, folks.
Well, anyway, we'll be back with another episode soon. We hope that you enjoyed this one. And again, keep the questions coming, and we'll be glad to answer them the best that we can.
Bye-bye.
Bye.